Dear students, now welcome back. So we are going to begin this important literary genre, that is novel. So first we'll start with the definition. Okay, so let's start it. So novel basically is an extended work of narrative fiction, which is usually written in prose and published as a book, right? So it is derived from the Italian word novella, which means new, news, or a short story, right? So novel is an extended work. That means it is quite a lengthy work, which is imaginary and narrative means it is in the form of a story, right? And it is written in prose. Most of the times it is written in prose, not in verse. Okay. And a novel, so you may call it as a narrative of some significant magnitude. That means उसकी कुछ एक length होती है काफ़ी, मतलब it runs into thousands of pages, and uh, which has a number of characters, right? Just like drama, it has got characters. Or characters, they are, in a specific setting, maybe a physical setting like the mountains, rivers, or the ponds, or the home, and also maybe socio-cultural, political, economic setting, right? Maybe historical setting also. So setting we'll discuss later also. So for the time being, you must understand a novel is a narrative. Narrative means it is a story, right? And it has got some length. That means it is bigger than story. A novel basically, runs into many pages, and it has got an elaborate plot. Elaborate means quite lengthy plot, or maybe number of plots. That means with subplots also, and it is long enough to for the proper development of these actions and the characters. So this is the basic definition of novel, right? So you must remember is that it is an extended work of narrative fiction. Narrative means a story. This is just storytelling. Okay, this is a bigger story, much bigger story, and it is a work of fiction. Fiction means imagination, and written in prose. So E.M. Forster, in his book Aspects of Novel, he has defined, the basic principles of novel writing. And though his principles or the concepts which he had given, they are still relevant. However, there have been many changes over the period of time, because literature, changes with time. It is as dynamic as man. Okay, so before we go to the next slide, let me tell you why this novel, novel is the earliest form, or just came at the last, right? First came poetry, then drama, and finally the novel. So the reasons are obvious, obviously, because novels are basically long stories which are to be printed. So earlier we did not have printing techniques. The printing technique was too slow, too costly. So later, when the printing techniques improved and became economical and faster, so then also we needed people who could read and write. So education also spread slowly in England, and finally by 18th or mid of the 18th century or early 19th century, we had enough literature which could be called novel, right? So let's go now to the plot. What is the plot? Now that as we discussed in drama also, it has a beginning, right? It has got a beginning. It is an exposition, that is where the incidents they're set into action. जैसे hero or heroine मिल गया, then there is a rising action. The action moves further. That means development of action, and finally tension or suspense reaches its highest point, that is called climax. And after climax comes kind of loosening up, or that is what you call as falling action, and finally resulting in the resolution, or what you call as the end. It may be happy or sad, so that determines whether it is a tragedy or comedy. So let us discuss the plot of a novel. So plot is nothing but an arrangement of events in some logical order. भाई क्या हुआ, क्यों हुआ, कब हुआ, कैसे हुआ, ठीक है, यही प्लॉट होता है, राइट. कोई भी कहानी बनती है तो इट्स नॉट लाइक जस्ट लाइक दैट इट हैपन्स, इट हैपन्स बिकॉज ऑफ अ रीजन, एंड दैट इट फॉलोज सम काइंड ऑफ लॉजिक कि ऐसा हुआ, ऐसा क्यों हुआ, कैसे हुआ, एंड देर इज एन एंटिसिपेशन इन आवर माइंड कि अब क्या होगा, व्हाट नेक्स्ट. ओके, सो that is why we have a plot, and the essential elements of a plot are, first is the beginning, जिसको हमने exposition पढ़ा वहाँ पे. The beginning means the initiation of the action. शुरुआत हो जाती है कहानी की, right? और शुरुआत हो जाती है, then we are curious to know more कि अब क्या होगा, what will happen next, right? Then there comes a conflict or the problem. That means the main character or protagonist is put in a conflict or a hostile situation, maybe because of an antagonist. एक विलन है, या उसको आप विलन कह सकते हैं, हॉस्टाइल इंडिविजुअल हो सकता है, या सोसाइटी हो सकती है, पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम हो सकता है, मे बी फैमिली मेम्बर्स ऑल्सो, मे बी some relatives or neighbors. So there comes a conflict. Now because of that conflict, there appear complications, okay, or obstacles, right? And these things, they become so tense that we reach the climax. That is the highest point of tension, you can call it the highest point of interest and suspense. अब आपको लगता है भाई अब कुछ ना कुछ तो होने ही वाला, something is going to happen. And when that climax, at that time the pressure is the highest, tension, interest, or there is suspense, and you cannot stay there for a long time, so there has to be a resolution, right? When the problem starts getting resolved, or वो resolve हो जाएगी, it may be in favor or against the main character or protagonist, right? It may result in his death, it may result in victory also, it may result in his failure also, it may result in union of the two, or it may result in separation also. So the ending of the story may be comic or tragic, depending on how the character, what he faces at the end of that story or the novel, right? So it may be happy ending, or where the protagonist is victorious, or he is united with someone. So there is a sense of happiness, and it may result in tragedy also, death of the main character or separation of the two. Or sometimes it may be open-ended. Open-ended means it is left to the audience to think on their own that what happens to him or her at the end. So open-ended means there is it is left open-ended. There is no clear-cut final solution, right? And so this is the plot. Now let us discuss about characters. Characters are as they appear on your screen right now, like we have these cartoon characters, Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and other characters. Okay, so character in a work of fiction, they are not just like these cartoons. They are human beings with whom we can identify, जो हमारी तरह, right? Even when the characters are animals or supernatural beings or even cartoons, they talk like us and behave like us humans. You might have seen Minnie and Mickey, Minnie Mouse and Mickey Mouse, talking like us, playing, teasing. सारा वो ऐसे लगता है जैसे इंसान ही है, right? So that is what the characters are. Characters are the ones who play the role in the novel. So in the aspects of novel, E.M. Forster has defined characters of two types. First is the flat characters, the second one is the round characters. Flat characters are those, flat का मतलब flat, those they are just types, means they represent a particular quality. वो मतलब एक ही तरह के दिखेंगे आपको, जैसे शुरू में थे वैसे ही एंड में भी दिखेंगे, कोई चेंज उनमें नहीं आएगा। ठीक है, इधर दे विल बी फुल, they will remain full, and they will come out full at the end of the novel. वो जैसे थे वैसे ही रहेंगे, बिकॉज दे आर क्रिएटेड लाइक दैट। जो नॉवेलिस्ट है वो ही क्रिएट्स नोइंगली देम, बिकॉज जनरली दे आर यूज्ड, दे आर पुट इन ए कॉमिक रोल। ठीक है, सो दे रिप्रेजेंट अ सिंगल क्वालिटी और आइडिया, देर इज नो चेंज इन देयर बिहेवियर एज द प्लॉट प्रोग्रेसेस। वो जैसे शुरुआत में थे वैसे ही एंड में मिलेंगे, क्लाउन फुलिश तो फुलिश, राइट। सो दे आर मोर सुटेबल इन कॉमिक वर्क्स। तो इस तरह के कैरेक्टर्स को वी कॉल देम फ्लैट कैरेक्टर्स। दूसरा है राउंड कैरेक्टर्स। राउंड का मतलब है कि कैरेक्टर्स हु आर मोर लाइफ लाइक, who are easy to identify, whom you can identify yourself with. वो complex होते हैं, they can think, they can change themselves. सबसे बड़ी चीज़ है they can change with the circumstances, or they change with the experience, and you will not find them similar as they were in the beginning. Either they will become from bad to worse or from good to best. तो कुछ भी हो सकता है, वो अच्छे से बुरे भी बन सकते हैं या बुरे से बहुत अच्छे भी बन सकते हैं। तो इस तरह के कैरेक्टर्स को राउंड कैरेक्टर्स कहते हैं, दोज हु अंडरगो अ डेफिनेट चेंज as the story progresses or as the plot moves. Okay, so this is the difference between flat characters and round characters. Now next we come to setting. इसको ड्रामा में स्टेज कहते हैं। स्टेज means where the action takes place. Now the difference between novel and drama lies here in the setting. In drama you need a particular stage to perform those particular actions. So drama is limited because you cannot change the stage too frequently. But a novelist is not limited by the setting. He or she can, frequently change the setting, like, because it is a narrative, it is just happening, it is a story, it's just happening in the imaginative world. So a novelist may, right now he may be in the hills of Manali, and very next second his characters, they think they are playing on the beaches of Goa. But dramatist is really restricted in the sense, because dramatist cannot change the stage too frequently, and this will be against those classical rules, जो classical rules थे ड्रामा के, that unity of action, time and place. और novelist को ये freedom है, वो उसको he is not bound by the limitations of time or place, right? He can change his setting as per his desire. So the setting of a novel refers to the time and place in which the story is set. मतलब कहानी कहाँ पे हो रही है, किस समय में हो रही है, कौन सी जगह पे हो रही है, वो है सेटिंग, राइट। फॉर एग्जाम्पल कुल्लू के दशहरे में हो रही है, तो अक्टूबर के महीने में हो रही है, तो वो सेटिंग है, राइट। और ये सेटिंग सिर्फ फिजिकल नहीं होती, इट्स नॉट लाइक यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट माउंटेन्स और रिवर्स और द प्लेन्स। सेटिंग जो है वो आपका एनवायरनमेंट के ऊपर भी होती है, हिस्टोरिकल, सोशल, cultural, economic atmosphere which prevails during that particular time also comes in setting. Okay, so setting, sometimes determines the fate of the protagonist, right? Sometimes not only, sometimes not many times, because we people, human beings, are the product of society, and society is a mixture of socio-economic, political conditions of that particular period. So obviously these conditions, socio-economic and political conditions, they shape the characters, and as a result they determine the events. So it is evident in social novels like The Jungle and the Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. So one example which I can give you from the modern times or contemporary crisis, which was there in a few years back, the COVID-19 lockdown. So you might have seen a lot of stories coming out, how people were locked up inside their homes. There was no movement all flights, all trains, buses, everything, they were cancelled, and there was no way people could travel from one place to another. And even there was economic shutdown. People could not go to their offices. Those who used to earn daily, जो रोज दिहाड़ी कमा के अपना घर चलाते थे, उनको भी कितनी समस्या हुई. सो देयर आर लॉट ऑफ स्टोरीज कमिंग आउट नाउ, फिक्शन, टीवी सीरीज, वेब सीरीज, lot of fiction is coming out now. So this is the result of the socio-economic or the political conditions of the particular era. So this becomes the setting, right? Next is the types of novels. So basically we have two types of novels. पहला होता है novels of incident. Incident का मतलब event, हुआ क्या, क्या हुआ, कैसा हुआ, क्यों हुआ, right? So here we are more interested in what happened, why it happened, and what will happen now. कि भाई क्या हुआ, क्यों हुआ, अब क्या होगा. So our focus is on the event, on the incident. Character is secondary. उसके अंदर जो character है वो दूसरे नंबर पे आता है. पहला क्या है हमारा इंटरेस्ट, इवेंट, क्या हुआ, क्यों हुआ, कब हुआ, कैसा हुआ, आगे क्या हुआ. So this is novel of incident. Another दूसरा जो है, that is novel of character, which is also known as psychological novel. So here the emphasis or the focus is on the character. Character मतलब कोई इंसान ही होगा, तो इंसान के उसके एक्शंस पे, वो क्या करता है, और मोटिव्स पे वो क्या सोचता है, right? So our entire focus is on the characters. What he does, why he does, and what he thinks and why he thinks, right? So we are eager to know what a character will do. वो क्या करेगा और उसके साथ क्या होगा. So that is our interest, not the incident. क्या होगा नहीं, अब इसका क्या होगा, इस character का क्या होगा, right? That is novel of character. Here are some examples. Novels of incident. जैसे World War II is a very big incident in world history. So जो पहला वाला है Hell's Angels, which is the story of that squadron, or those people who were involved in this dropping of that bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. So this is incident based. क्या हुआ उस दिन और कैसा हुआ, right? Second is Anthony Beevor's The Second World War, which tells you about that horrible incident or horrible period in world history of the Second World War. Similarly, we have novels of character where the focus is entirely on the character. Just a James Bond series, there are a lot of fiction which is written about James Bond, the super agent 007. Similarly, another example is the Irish Princess. Okay, so now the third kind of novel is Picaresque novel. Picaresque novel, it comes from Spanish word picaro. Picaro means rogue, एक बदमाश. Okay, so it tells the story or the adventures of or misadventures of a disreputable hero. मतलब जिसका reputation बहुत अच्छा नहीं है. कहने का मतलब वो is of a dubious, his character is of a dubious nature. वो एक मतलब fugitive है, भगोड़ा है, कानून से भागा हुआ, ठीक है. और so here our who does not go any change till the end. So इसके episodes होते हैं, भी ये कर दिया, फिर वो कर दिया, फिर वो कर दिया. So the episodic form है, one after another, right? So it is a novel of incident. So here the focus is not on the hero. उस रोग के ऊपर नहीं होता, बल्कि वो क्या कर रहा है, वो अब क्या करेगा, what next he will do, on that. So Picaresque novel basically has a hero who has a disreputable character, okay, who has a dubious character, and who does not go any change. And this novel is about his or her adventures or misadventures. And example है आपका Mark Twain's The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Next is historical novel. Historical novel, as the name itself suggests, historical मतलब history से related है. तो इसमें क्या है, इसकी setting भी historical है और characters भी historical. That means historical novel is based on a historical legend, historical person or historical place, historical event. मतलब हिस्ट्री में जो हुआ, बहुत बड़ी कोई चीज़ हुई या बहुत बड़ा कोई राजा हुआ है, इंसान हुआ. So based on that, that is called historical. इसकी setting भी historical है, history में है वापस. Okay. For example, Jodha Akbar, so you will find the characters, they are put in that costume जिसमें राजा महाराजा की तरह, उसी तरह से there are wars and fortresses, किले बनाए जाते हैं. तो उस तरह से we have to recreate the past, right? So because the historical novel is rooted in some historical event, historical person, or historical legend, right? So the example is Walter Scott. Walter Scott, who is also known as father of historical novel in English literature. Ivanhoe, right? And Waverley series also is there, Walter Scott. Then Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities, दो शहरों की कहानी, which he narrates the story in these two cities, London and Paris. Charles Dickens. So this is the example of Picaresque novel. Here, The History of Tom Jones by Henry Fielding and Moll Flanders by Daniel Defoe. And we have next is social novel. Social novel, name itself suggests कि नाम है socio-economic conditions of an era, which are depicted and the effect they have on the characters and events, right? So that becomes the social novel. Okay. ये generally जो है वो social reforms के लिए होता है, right? So based on the socio-economic conditions of an era and their impact on the characters and events, right? John Steinbeck's that Grapes of Wrath, it is an example. Then we have realistic novel. Realistic novel means a story which is rooted in the real life, or at least has an impression of reality. It is not totally imaginative, it has some link to the real life, or it appears as something as real. So the characters are complex and they live just like us, the everyday experiences. So example is Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, and Charles Dickens' David Copperfield, which is an autobiographical novel by Charles Dickens. Okay, so these are the two types, social novel and realistic novel. Social का example यहाँ पे The Grapes of Wrath, John Steinbeck. And next is that realistic novel, Pride and Prejudice, okay, by this Jane Austen. Next is the regional novel. Regional novel का मतलब है किसी region में set है. Region का मतलब area. So it has a particular setting of a particular place, their speech, उनके socio-cultural customs of a particular locality. Region, जैसे बोले हिमाचल के novels कोई लिख रहा है, हिमाचल के बारे में लिख रहा, तो you will have the setting in mountains and the language of the locals and the socio-cultural customs of this particular area. So such kind of novels they are called regional novels. So the story will be set in this kind of setting. Their speech and socio-cultural customs will reflect a particular area. So that is why they are named as regional novels. So the local conditions, they influence the characters, their behavior and action, because man is the product of nature and environment. So whatever environment we live in, we behave and act accordingly, right? So that is why some of the novelists, they use a specific setting. For example, Thomas Hardy, most of his novels, their action takes place in the town of Wessex, okay, which is a place to the southwest of London. Okay, so see, all his novels, they have a fixed setting, that is the Wessex. Similarly, R.K. Narayan, the Malgudi town, okay, Malgudi town, where a train comes in the morning, goes in the evening, and this town which is situated on the banks of river Saryu, okay, it is in Karnataka, South India. So all his stories and most of his novels, they have a backdrop of this particular fictional town of Malgudi. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Regional novel, which is set in a particular region. Okay, Then next is important form of novel, that is Bildungsroman. Bildungsroman. So Bildungsroman, it is a term which is made of German words. Bildung. Bildung means education or forming, and Roman means novel. So a novel which shows the formation of its character. That means a literary genre or a novel that focuses on the psychological and moral growth of the protagonist. Not only physical, ये नहीं कि वो छोटा था, बच्चा था, बड़ा हो गया, 3 फीट का था, 6 फीट का. Not that. It is more on the psychological and moral growth. Psychological and moral growth of the protagonist from childhood to adulthood. तो इस तरह के नॉवल को जो ये पूरी ग्रोथ को दिखाता है, ओके, जो इसका मेन हीरो है, जो चाइल्डहुड से लेकर एडल्टहुड, कौन सी ग्रोथ, साइकोलॉजिकल एंड मॉरल ग्रोथ. सो दैट इज कॉल्ड बिल्डंग्सरोमन, राइट. एग्जाम्पल आपके पास है जेन आयर का जेन आयर बाय चार्लोट ब्रॉन्टे एंड डेविड कॉपरफील्ड बाय चार्ल्स डिकेंस, राइट. सो दिस इज द एग्जाम्पल ऑफ रीजनल नॉवल. आर के नारायण का जो मालगुड़ी, राइट, और उनका नॉवल द वेंडर ऑफ स्वीट्स है जैसे, एंड थॉमस हार्डी का रिटर्न ऑफ द नेटिव, which is set in the town of Essex. Okay. Then Bildungsroman. Bildungsroman means where the novelist shows the moral and psychological development of a character from childhood to adulthood. So Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte and this Charles Dickens, David Copperfield, which is his autobiography, okay, kind of autobiographical novel, right. Then the last two are that is epistolary novels. Epistolary novels which is in the form of letters. मतलब novel जो है वो letter form है, letters की एक series है, okay, which is written in first person. It appears in journals or diaries, जैसे सैमुअल रिचर्डसन की क्लैरिसा है, पामेला है, वर्चू रिवार्डेड सब टाइटल है उसका, एंड मार्क हैरिस का नॉवल है वेक अप स्टूपिड. ओके, सो दिस इज अनदर फॉर्म ऑफ नॉवल, epistolary novel, right. Last one is the anti novel. Anti matlab which is opposite. Okay, so this kind of novel, which does not follow the conventions, the traditional norms, convention and expectations, is called anti novel. मतलब novel का anti है वो तो है तो novel, लेकिन वो it does not follow the conventions or traditional conventions of the novel. Okay, it defies, वो जानबूझ के उनको नहीं मानता है, जो ट्रेडिशनल नॉर्म्स हैं, जो कन्वेंशंस हैं, जो एक्सपेक्टेशंस हैं. तो कैसा होता है एंटी नॉवल? फर्स्ट इज इट वोंट हैव अ प्लॉट. Plot means though incidents they may not be logically connected, it may be just disparate connection or loose connection of various incidents. Matlab it does not have a plot in the conventional sense. Okay, a story may maybe moving in a haphazard manner, and there is minimal development of the character, right. And there is variation in time sequence. मतलब chronological नहीं होगा, सुबह हुई, दोपहर हुई, शाम हुई. वहाँ शाम से शुरू हो सकता है, दोपहर में जा सकता है, फिर शाम को जा, फिर सुबह हो सकती है. So there is variation जानबूझ के, right. Then experiments with vocabulary and syntax. They may not use words which are common. They may use uncommon words, uncommon similes, and the syntax also as per their choice. And its ending is not very definite, may have alternative endings, even the beginnings are not proper. So example, Ellen Robb relates jealousy. So this is anti-novel basically it is a novel, but it does not follow the traditional norms or conventions as in a novel. So iska plot may not have a compact plot, or may not have a plot which is logically connected. There is no or minimum development of the character.